go ahead and do a brief drum mixing tutorial. Go ahead and just run through what I do. Go ahead and tighten up some tracks and a couple tricks and show you what you can do. Let's get into it. So let's start off looking at the kick drum. This would be the raw track, no compression, no EQ. It's kind of flat, boomy sound. You can kind of hear a lot of the other drumming parts into it. And let's go ahead and check the other window out, see what we've got. So I started out by compressing the bass drum. You can see that this input gain will increase the overall volume of everything. So even that noise, the noise floor will be raised, so you'll hear more cymbals, more snare, more everything. I typically tend to just bring it up a notch because I just mainly want to compress the bass drum, not the entire kit. You can't really avoid that, but you can just get a little bit. And then I try to bring my level up just to a this is obviously too hot, and we're gonna have to bring that down. We'll leave it right about there because I want it hot. I'll just pull it back and check the master, because you want to start out mixing drums, you want it to be kind of low, because after you get all your tracks mixed, the overall gain is going to be quite a bit higher. And then when you start adding bass, guitar, it adds and adds and adds, and before you know it, your whole mix will be overloading and you'll have to start over. So let's go ahead and punch in the EQ on it and see what it sounds like. I generally cut out low mids on bass drum and then increase the lows just a hair. I guess I've got this part EQ'd, not really sure why. There it is, bypassed. Makes a pretty good difference, and then you can really feel the kick a little bit more, but it's still got some of that booming. That's really where the gate comes in. And you can adjust the attack and release, and I want it to sound like a drum. Really, I want to capture more of the boom, or not the boom, but the attack. So we do want fast attack. We'll just crank it all the way up. I do hear a little bit of crackling in there. I'm not sure if that's on my headphones or if that's on the actual. Let's go ahead and hear that. There's a good comparison. Actually, I don't have any compression, so this gain's lower in the mix. Okay. Here's the overhead on the left side. I've got it panned. Not all the way, not hard or anything. I've got my both overheads panned just a little bit. I didn't actually use a hi-hat mic for this because the hi-hats are pretty loud as it is. Let's go ahead and hear the. Really, all I did was just EQ it a bit and add some compression. And it's barely compressed. A little bit of EQ probably to bring up the hi-hats a tad. I don't want a bunch of bass in it, because too much bass in everything gives it a generally muddy kind of sound. pretty much same deal with the compressor and the EQ on this. These are two different mics, so it doesn't have, I don't have a matched pair or anything on this. Okay, we're gonna move on to the room mic. This is usually the one I use the less of in the mix. Excuse me, I just wanted to get some of the just live feel of it. And I wanted everything to be matched. There's a little bit more compression on this because I want the overall room mic sound to be about at the same level overall. So I applied more compression. I actually have a 20-to-1 ratio on this. And then we can look over at the that raw track actually sounds pretty good. Whoops, this is the one we don't want. That does add quite a bit of feel to the drums from the overall mix. Well, I've got synthesizer and bass on this. We'll go ahead and move into snare because this is probably one of the more involved tracks. Let me just shut that down. I've done quite a bit of work on the snare drum. As you can see, what I do is I go in and I listen to the track and I pick the best sounding snare drum that I like out of the ones that I've played. And then I just go back and I replace each hit. And I just kind of zoom in. Just drag it in there, and if, you know, you listen to it enough times if you're mixing to see if something sounds out of place, then you just move it a little bit. Looks like I moved this one here. To get that sound, I'll go ahead and bypass everything. And we'll go over it real quick. There's this raw snare track. And I've gone ahead and compressed the snare hits because I wanted them to be fairly level. It does bring up the noise floor, which we don't want that. But I wanted some level snare hits to work with. That's the first thing I do, is compress it before the EQ or before any kind of gating or limiting. Let's just go here to a heavy snare part. There we go. Okay. And then the gate. Now we put in. There we go. Now I've got a really fast attack and release, and this hold is really what makes it sound like how you want it. If you want more of a ring. I actually should probably tell you about the threshold. There we go. This is letting everything through that track. But we only want to let the snare drum ring through. So we're just going to raise it until that's all we hear. Just like that. And if you go too far, you'll be able to tell. It won't. Maybe we could play with this a little bit. See if we can get it a little bit tighter. Let's go back here. Okay. That's too much. See what it's like. But I think it sounds better than the original track. There we go. I know it sounds kind of goofy with when it's not mixed, but in the mix you can't really. It doesn't really sound like that. It just adds that attack, and then there's no mud left over. So you don't have to worry about getting that out of there. You'll have a cleaner sounding drum track. And so, oh, there we go. There we go. Now, as far as the toms go, now the toms actually turned out really bad. Terrible sounding. In fact, let's just go ahead and find out how bad they really sound. We'll start with the floor tom because that's the most prevalent tom. I've only got two on this, a rack and a floor. It sounds pretty bad. There we go. And that's actually filtered. Here's raw. That just sounds terrible to me. I should have re-recorded it, but I didn't, so I just did the best I could with it. See what we got. Go back. EQ, low mids, a little bit of highs. Compressor. So I want my EQ after the compressor. Actually. There we go. Almost needs a little bit more. There we go. Not that that's perfect, man. Same deal with with all the times. Except I was playing a lot more, so I don't want to cut everything out. No, that's just really muddy and just yucky. Compression, I might increase the ratio on this. And my attack needs to be a little bit faster. There we go. Yeah, that sounds quite a bit better. Ooh, that sounds much better. Let's go ahead and hear it. Check this rack time out. There we go. There we go. This is the raw track here, and this is what I've done to it. I went in, I took the best tom hit that I liked, and I replaced all these with the one I liked. And then I was just able to delete. I can just give you a quick example of how I do it. We'll just take this one. Let's say that's the one I like. Zoom in on it. Select it right at the beginning. It doesn't have to be precisely perfect. Command E, which creates it into its own region. When you click on it, you'll see it down here on your track list. So you'll find them. So I click on it, so I know that's the right one. I zoom out a little bit. Go to this one. I grab it, drag it up here, drop it in. You can check it if you want. It looks pretty good. We'll hear it. Oh. That's good. I'll zoom back out. You just repeat the process. It's a little bit time consuming, and you got to get in there and make sure it looks right. Whoops. But that's the idea behind it. If it's messed up, you just move it a little bit. And then this stuff you don't need. See, there's no real worry about gating except for the purposes of timing the length of the decay of the tom, which is why you want to use a gate on a tom. Because a lot of people don't tune drums very well anyway, so it sounds a little bit like a delay because that's the floor tom hitting. It picks up in that, and it's not really any good way to get rid of it, so it blends okay. Like it might even be just a little that's pretty much it for that's pretty much how I mix drums anyway. This is the raw track, or I mean not, this is the mixed drum track. And you'll notice that snare is a little bit abrupt. Oh, my limiter's not active. There we go. I've got brick wall limiting on this, so the snare will not overload, and then it can just bring it right up there every time. I mean, if you're using triggers or something, then you don't need to worry about this. So I don't use that. This is old school, really. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and look forward to doing some more as well. Alright, thanks for tuning in.